This is Building a Creative Life. I'm Pam Vale, a New England artist, bringing the world of creativity to your door through casual conversations with artists, creators, and everyday people, helping curious, midlife women begin their next creative chapter. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. This episode is a bit of a follow-up to my recent one about finding creative museum experiences that are personal to you. In that episode, I talked about my visit to the Fashion and Textile Museum in London to see a costume exhibit featuring clothing from historic films and TV, like A Room with a View. If you haven't heard that one yet, I'll link it below. It's all about learning to see with curiosity and personal connection. Today, I want to talk about something I think all of us have felt at one time or another. Have you ever walked into a museum, looked around for a few minutes, and quietly thought, I'm kind of bored? If so, you're not alone. Even as someone who loves art, design, and history, I've had moments where my eyes glaze over in a gallery filled with paintings that don't speak to me. It's not that museums aren't magical. They absolutely are. But sometimes the experience can feel overwhelming, disconnected, or even exhausting. So today, let's talk about how not to be bored in a museum. When we travel, especially abroad, but even locally, we often feel obligated to visit the famous museums and iconic sites. And with good reason. They hold masterpieces and artifacts that connect us to history and to beauty and to human creativity throughout time. They're important and they're worth seeing. But let's be honest, sometimes they can be a lot. You walk into a huge hall filled with dozens of paintings or sculptures, and you wander, but you're not really seeing. You leave feeling like you checked the box, but not like it meant much to you personally. So what do you do with that? How do you make museum visits enjoyable and meaningful for you or for the loved ones who might be along for the ride? That's what we're talking about today. Let's reframe it, because if you learn to live like an artist in a museum, you'll never be bored again. My first tip is learn a little bit before you go. This is the best way to get the most out of your visit, and honestly, it lets your travels begin before you even leave home. There are so many ways to do this. One way would be to watch a movie or a documentary. This is probably my favorite way. Watching something beforehand helps bring a place to life. Before our trip to Versailles, for example, we watched the TV series Versailles, and a charming, simple romantic film called A Little Chaos with Kate Winslet and Alan Rickman. They are not perfectly accurate, but they give you a glimpse of the time period and make the place feel familiar when you finally see it. Another time, before visiting the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, we watched This Is a Robbery. It's a documentary about the largest art heist in history. That one especially caught my husband's interest. We went to the museum already knowing the story and could look for the empty frames and clues mentioned in the film. It made the visit so much richer. My second suggestion would be to read a book. You can find books on just about any artist, time period, or museum. Libraries, secondhand shops, or even ordering directly from the museum are great places to start. Read about the artists and their process and the world they lived in. It adds so much depth to your visit. My third tip would be to search YouTube or Instagram. There are so many passionate people sharing short, fascinating stories about art, history, and travel. You can search by destination, artist, or even something broad like what to see at the Louvre for teens or hidden museums in Italy. It's a great way to discover what sparks your own curiosity. My fourth tip would be to visit the museum's own website. They often have virtual tours, background information, and maps showing where certain collections are located. I like to make a short list of what looks most interesting to me before I go, and that becomes my starting point. Anything extra is just bonus. Step 2, once you're there, slow down and go deep. Once you arrive, most museums offer free or low-cost guided tours, and these can completely transform your experience. My recent London trip, we went to the V&A Museum for a specific exhibit, but afterwards we wandered into a short, free tour focused on historic fashion and textiles. Our guide was so passionate and detailed. She led us through rooms, pointing out things we never would have noticed, little details that completely changed what we were seeing. There was one particular dress I had stopped at earlier on my own. It caught my eye. I took a few photos, I read a bit of the label, and moved on. But when we revisited it on the tour, she explained everything. The chintz fabric, who might have worn it, the politics of that time, the meaning of the colors. Suddenly, this one dress had an entire life and story behind it. It came alive in a way I never would have imagined. So yes, appreciating beauty is enough, but sometimes a little backstory gives it texture and heart. Step 3 would be don't try to see everything. In a smaller museum, like the Fashion and Textile Museum, you might be able to see it all. But in places like the V&A in London, the Met in New York, or the Louvre in Paris, there is simply no way. You wouldn't see everything in years of visiting. So pick your favorites, maybe a few pieces or 1 or 2 areas, and let the rest be gravy. Step 4 is choose the right museums for you. This might sound obvious, but it's worth saying. Pick museums that match your personal interests. Of course, see the big ones, but don't overlook the smaller, focused collections. If you love fashion, visit textile or design museums. If you love stories, look for exhibits tied to literature or film. If you love objects and interiors, find collections of furniture, armor, or wallpaper. I personally love decorative arts, so on my last trip, we went to the Wallace Collection in London. It's lesser known, but absolutely incredible, full of ornate, detailed decorative pieces, which were exactly my thing. It wasn't on any top 10 list, but it was perfect for me. And as a bonus, look for hidden gems. I have to give a little shout out to the V&A in London again for a service I'd never heard of called Order an Object. You can go on their website, look through thousands of pieces of art in storage, and request a private, free appointment to view them, up close, in person. You can choose 4 to 5 items and meet with them one-on-one. I didn't have time to do that on this trip, but next time I definitely will and already have items picked out. It's such a brilliant idea, bringing the museum to life on a deeply personal level. Imagine holding history in your hands at eye level with a work of art that most people will never see up close. That's the kind of creative experience that makes travel feel intimate and alive. And don't skip the cafe or the shop. This is a must. Leave time for the cafes and museum shops. The cafes are usually beautiful and often surrounded by art. The cafe at the V&A in London is one of the most stunning places I've ever had a cup of tea. With gilded ceilings, mosaic floors and walls, sunlight pouring through stained glass, fireplaces, and huge glittering chandeliers. And the museum shops are some of the best places to find souvenirs, things that are useful and lovely. I love picking up pretty pens and notebooks or a reusable tote bag with a print from an exhibit I loved, or maybe a scarf or tea towel featuring a painting you connected with. They even have edible treats in gorgeous packaging that make perfect gifts. Museums are about beauty, and that includes where you take a break. So that's my take on how not to be bored in a museum. Living like an artist means noticing details others might miss. When you learn a little beforehand, choose what truly interests you and let yourself linger. You start to see like an artist. And that's what this whole series is about. Learning to live like an artist wherever you are, whether you're visiting a world-famous museum or a small local gallery. Remember, the goal isn't to get through it, it's to be in it. That's how artists see the world, and you can too. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for free and share it with a friend. It helps others find the show and grows our community. Remember, creativity is yours to define, there are no rules, and it's never too late. Until next time.